Hello, how's it going, folks? It's me, Tabo, and welcome to another tutorial on Three.js. In front of our screen here, we've got an animation. This is an animation that I did a while ago, and this is animated using cubes, and I'm using a spotlight to project the logo on the surface of the animated cubes. So without further ado, let's just jump right in and let me show you how I did this. Okay, as usual, I've got the bare bones of the code already prepared. So we're going to start with the usual. I'm going to be importing Three and orbit control. We've got our renderer and we've got our camera. We've got our scene. We've already set the position of the camera to look at the scene position. So these are the usual basic things that I have or start with. If you don't know how all of this works, please check out my beginner tutorials, as this is not a newbie tutorial. So I'm assuming that you already know how to set up a basic scene in Three.js. With all that said, I'm going to jump right in. Okay, so first I'm going to create two variables, which will be our spotlights that we're going to use. We're going to use two spotlights, by the way. Okay, so over here we've got our Three texture loader. And this is where we're going to load the logo, a PNG that I'm going to be using to project from the spotlight. So I give it the path, and as an argument, we're going to create a function. So inside here, this is where we're going to actually create the spotlight. So as I said here, I've created two variables. So we're just going to assign these variables to the spotlight. So I'll create one spotlight first, and then I'll clone the second one. On this first spotlight, this is where I'm going to map the texture. And the second one will just be a plain blue color. Then I'm going to add them to the scene and then position them according to these values. And so next I will create an array called box_r. So this is where we're going to put the different cubes that we're going to create. And then here I'm going to create another array, which is just going to be an array that holds two different materials. Now this is just for illustration purposes. When I created this, I was trying to see the different effects that I would get, or the different looks that I would get using different materials. So this is where this originally came from. So I kept it that way so that you can kind of get into my mind and understand my thinking when I create these things. So I just left it as it is, so you can play around with it when you get the code. So you have two different materials. It's a mesh standard material and a mesh Lambert. And then I create a for loop, and inside this for loop, this is where I create the different box meshes and then put them into the box_r array. Okay, so next I create a variable called yCount, which is equals to 0. Okay, and then I create a for loop. And then in this for loop, this is where I position the different cubes. Okay, they're supposed to be positioned 100 by 100 across the X and Y axes. So this is the logic behind that. Okay, so next up, I'm going to create a function. This function is called buffer waves. And buffer waves takes two arguments. It's wave size and magnitude. Now inside, I'm going to create a variable called time, and it's going to be using the performance.now, and I'm going to multiply it by this value over here. Then I will create a vector 3, and then I'll create a center, and this center is also a vector 3. So over here, I created a for loop, and this is what is responsible for the animation. So I'll go through each and every box, and this is where I set the rotation according to these values over here. And I do the same thing for the position. So this is ultimately what will create that wave-like animation that you see. Okay, so next up, we're going to go to the render function, and in here, we're going to paste the buffer waves. This is where we're going to run the function, and then I gave it these values over here. I came up with these values from testing, so these are the ones that gave me the best effect in terms of the animation. So once all of that is done, then I'm gonna run our server, and then I'm gonna have a look and see what it looks like. Okay, my bad, I made a mistake. I actually forgot to include the logo. Okay, so I just got the logo, but since I have a different file system, then I'm gonna need to make some changes here, because I do not have resources or images folder. I mainly have a logo folder. So this is where I put our image. And so here we go. So this is our animation. Now, just to illustrate to you how all of this works, I'm going to switch off one of the spotlights so that you can see what each one is doing. Now, the second spotlight is responsible for the color. So if I remove it, this is what happens. You see, you just mainly have a projection of the logo. So the blue color that you see, or that you saw before, is not there. So you can still go with this look. I just decided to use the other one because I thought it was a lot more interesting with the blue color. But you can play around with it as much as you want. You can add a bloom effect. In my opinion, bloom always makes things look better. So I tend to use it a lot, maybe overuse it, I don't know. So yeah, so this is what this is doing. So you could use any image that you like. It just depends on whether it gives you the effect that you're looking for. So in this case, I used the logo because I thought it would look good. And I can imagine you can also create this animation for something like a flag. You will probably have to adjust it a bit so that it gives you exactly the look that you're looking for. So in this case, this is what I got. Yeah. So this is a very short one. I just wanted to show you how all of this works. And in case you're interested in seeing how the whole thing works, because at the moment it's probably a bit vague, let me just show you just a few quick things and then I'll just cut it. Okay, what I'm going to do over here is that I'm going to change this into a mesh basic material. Okay, so let's see what that looks like. Okay, so this is how it actually looks. So these are just the different blocks or cubes that I created. And so the rest of this you don't actually see because it's a mesh basic material, then it does not really rely on light, but any other material requires light, so the rest of it would be dark. So that's why you only get to see the projection and the rest of the cubes you don't see. You just get to see the intricate part of the animation, which creates the effect that you see. So ultimately this is it. So yeah, without further ado, I don't want to talk too much because I wanted to make it a short one, but I just want you to kind of a bit understand what it is that I'm doing overall. Okay, as usual, I will include the code in the video description, and yeah, have fun with it, play around, learn more. So if you like this video and the kind of content that I create, so please hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and hit that notification bell so that you can get notified when I put out a video like this. Okay, so with all that said, love and peace. I'm out.